Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving right into a literal internet-breaking mystery hidden deep within the remote taiga of southern Siberia. We're going to unpack one of the most fiercely debated physical anomalies on the face of the planet. And look, this isn't just about some interesting rocks. It's about a site that could potentially rewrite human history as we know it. We're looking at the giant stone blocks of Gornaya Shoria, Siberia's colossal enigma. So, are these structures the ultimate geological masterpiece, or are they the impossible remnants of something built by unknown hands? The answer to that changes absolutely everything.
To really wrap your head around why these stones went viral back in the 2010s, you just have to comprehend the estimated weight of a single block. 3,000 tons. Seriously, try to visualize that number for a second. That is roughly the equivalent of taking 500 adult elephants and stacking them on top of each other. When explorers first brought back estimates of these megaliths, the sheer mathematical absurdity of that number forced the entire world to just stop and pay attention.
And that staggering weight leads us directly to the core question of our entire investigation today: nature or ancient engineering. Are these sheer cliffs just geological wonders that took millions of years to make, or the completely impossible remnants of a lost ancient civilization? This debate has captivated historians, alternative researchers, and mainstream geologists alike, because the answer isn't just a fun piece of trivia. Depending on which side is right, it fundamentally changes the story of our planet.
But before we actually examine the stones, we've got to understand where they're hiding out. The Kemerovo region is this unforgiving, mostly unexplored wilderness in southwestern Siberia, where winter temperatures regularly plunge below -40 degrees Fahrenheit. For centuries, this freezing, intensely forested, and rugged terrain was literally only known to local indigenous communities, miners, and maybe a few really rugged hunters. Its complete geographic isolation is exactly what kept these colossal secrets perfectly safe from the outside world for so long. It's the kind of landscape that just naturally breeds legends. Well, that isolation ended abruptly. When explorers finally brought photos online in the early 2010s, the world immediately demanded answers. People weren't just seeing random mountain rubble here, they saw massive formations rising tens of meters straight up into the sky. They were looking at colossal blocks stacked almost perfectly like masonry, with these astonishing flat surfaces and incredibly sharp edges. To the human eye, it immediately looked like intentional construction, not just some random act of geology.
And the sheer scale is really what sets this site apart from anything else. For decades, the ancient Roman quarry of Baalbek in Lebanon has been the undisputed gold standard for ancient megalithic engineering. Baalbek's largest stone weighs a massive 1,650 tons. But the Siberian stones? They utterly crush that benchmark, coming in at an astonishing estimated weight of 3,000 tons.
It's not just the weight either. It's the physical dimensions. We are talking about lengths of up to 20 meters for individual stones. That is basically the length of a 6-story building laid perfectly flat on its side. If these megaliths were in fact human-made, they would completely rewrite the known limits of ancient engineering. They'd completely dwarf anything achieved by the ancient Egyptians, the Romans, or the Inca. It just begs the question: is there any way an unknown civilization could have possessed this level of technology?
All right, let's look at Section 1. Suspect A, the case for design.
Alternative researchers point to some really compelling visual anomalies up at the site. They highlight perfect right angles carved into the rock, and blocks that appear to be precisely stacked one on top of the other, forming what looks like massive defensive or ceremonial walls spanning across entire mountain ridges. On top of that, some claim to have identified signs of extreme heat and vitrification on the stones. Vitrification implies the stone was exposed to extreme melting temperatures, which is obviously highly unusual for a standard mountain ridge. It paints a pretty vivid picture of a lost, super-advanced prehistoric culture.
But here is where we run into a major roadblock. There is a massive disconnect in the evidence. On the one hand, you have this staggering visual evidence of construction: straight lines, stacking, sharp corners. But on the other hand, there's a glaring reality of missing physical evidence. There is absolutely zero physical proof of humans ever actually being up there. No ancient tools have been dug up. There are no ancient roads that could transport 3,000-ton blocks. No artifacts, no settlements, nothing. So without a single piece of physical trash or infrastructure, the theory of an ancient builder really remains entirely speculative.
Which brings us to Section 2, Suspect B, The case for nature.
Geologists look at this and argue that these are simply natural outcrops of granite and igneous rock, shaped by a fascinating process known as orthogonal jointing. It happens when natural geological fractures divide massive rock formations into large, rectangular sections over millions of years. I know it sounds incredibly complex, but it's really just the natural geometry of the Earth at work. Given the exact right conditions, the planet naturally cuts perfect rectangles.
You really have to think of nature as a patient, incredibly methodical sculptor here. First, tectonic stress from the shifting Earth creates deep, straight fractures in the rock mass. Second, the harsh Siberian environment takes over. Water gets down into those cracks, freezes, and then thaws out. This freeze-thaw cycle acts exactly like a giant wedge, expanding the gaps wider and wider over time. Finally, severe weathering and erosion come in and strip away all the surrounding loose debris. What you're left with are these exposed, angular, perfectly stacked blocks. Millions of years of tectonic stress and freezing water can absolutely carve straight lines right out of solid rock.
And that leads us to the prevailing mainstream conclusion, which is, the apparent construction may simply be an illusion created by nature. The humans are fundamentally wired to seek out patterns in the chaos. When we see straight lines and stacked blocks, our pattern-seeking brains immediately scream architecture. But what looks to us like a deliberately built wall could very well just be nature playing a phenomenal 20-meter-long trick on the human eye.
So, let's wrap this up with Section 3, the unsolved case, why the mystery endures.
You might be wondering, why haven't we just gone up there to prove this one way or another? The truth is, investigating this site is a logistical nightmare. Gornaya Shoria is situated in extremely rugged, super remote mountain terrain. The harsh Siberian weather limits safe access for most of the year. And because it's so incredibly isolated, the cost of flying or hauling heavy, delicate scientific equipment into those mountains is exceptionally high. As a result, there is just a severe lack of comprehensive archaeological and geological surveys. We simply haven't been able to study it closely enough yet to officially close the book on this mystery.
But the story doesn't end here. This mystery will likely be solved not by pickaxes, but by pixels. It's going to take a massive influx of modern technology to finally give us definitive answers. We're talking about high-altitude drone surveys to map out the ridges, advanced laser mapping or LiDAR to essentially peel back that thick forest cover, deep core geological sampling to test the exact makeup of the stones, and advanced satellite imaging analysis. Technology is absolutely the key to unlocking the real truth of Gornaya Shoria.
Until that day finally comes, the monumental stones of Siberia remain an absolutely captivating puzzle. Whether they're the forgotten fortress of a lost ancient civilization or a staggering testament to the sheer sculptural power of natural geology, they are a really powerful reminder of how little we truly know about our own world. It forces us to ask one final, thrilling question. What other impossible secrets are hiding out there in the wilderness, just waiting to shatter everything we thought we knew about our planet? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll see you next time.